What the hell, you people? Why are you doing this to me? Alright, let's get down to it. Now, first off, disclaimer. I'm the most apolitical guy you will ever meet. I honestly don't care if you park a donkey or an elephant at your dinner table. Both of them are going to shit in your food.
It jumped up a notch. It did, didn't it?
That's my honest opinion about politics. However, though I try to avoid politics, there are going to be a couple of moments I got to skirt into them just a little bit. Fair warning up front, but don't try to, if you don't go in the comments and turn this into a political debate, because it ain't what it's about.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure?
I will get to what it's about. It's about, why the hell are we killing our past? I mean, I don't understand it. Because it seems like every time I turn around, we gotta take something from history and turn it into something it wasn't. And it never intended to be. Luke Skywalker. Indiana Jones. I mean, hell, in hindsight, watching Indiana Jones, go back and watch Logan, you're like, oh shit, they did the same thing to freaking Wolverine. Thank God Deadpool came along and gave him a little bit of a better send-off.
He's got a nice pair of smooth criminals down under.
But still. So now, we gotta turn to where not only are we insulting the characters of our history, but now we're insulting the creators. I'm sure everyone has heard all the tweets that a certain billionaire has been going on about. I had not seen the foreword to the D&D history book. Did not know about any of that shit was in there. So it did come as a surprise to me. Because why the hell would you insult Gary Gygax? It's phenomenally crazy to me. Crazy.
It's 3 fries short of a Happy Meal. Wacko!
But anyway, we've got these excerpts from the book. Some language from the first iteration of D&D presents a moral quandary. Really? Documents reproduced in this book include many pages of charts and tables alongside lists of monster, spell, and magic items. But the game content includes a virtual catalog of insensitive and derogatory language.
Bullshit.
Words that are casually hurtful to someone with physical or mental disability.
Bullshit.
Or who happens to be old, fat, not conventionally attractive, indigenous, black, or a woman.
It's all bullshit.
That's pretty bad to open up. Well, that's not the opening, but this section opening. Some people have charitably ascribed this language to authors working from bad assumptions. In the 1970s, historical wargamers in America were predominantly white, middle-class men. Isn't it interesting that they would dub the class of soldiers the fighting man? The first thing when I see that fighting man quote, we're talking about a system slightly based on medieval times. Warfare in medieval times was fought by men. There are plenty of practical reasons for that. One is, you only need one man to impregnate 20 women. That's a propagation of the species right there. That's the big one. And I know that's probably not the best analogy, but at the same time, it's a reality. It's what the thought process. Keeping in mind, too, there are exceptions, of course, like Joan of Arc. And, well, Joan of Arc's the most famous one, but that's an exception, not the rule. And it's rare that a person like Joan of Arc ever rises to any prominence. But that doesn't mean we don't acknowledge them in history. You don't need as many men as women to continue your population. It's true, how many If you look at it, we can get really down and look at it as cattle. How many bulls do you need? Where do you think veal came from? I mean, that's a reality. And it's a reality where that's why men have always fought wars. Okay. When we're talking in that time frame especially, it's only been fairly recently that women have even been allowed to serve fully in the military. And honestly, I'm fine with women serving in the military. I remember when it was controversial, and now it's like nobody cares. It was very controversial at one time. But anyway, I see that and I'm thinking, yeah, you don't understand history, do you? Okay, but when in the pages of Greyhawk, man, I'm stumbling over words. In the pages of Greyhawk, the description of the Queen of Chaotic Dragons includes a dig at women's lib. Oh God, the misogyny revealed is a conscious choice. My mom labels herself a feminist, and she said women's lib was stupid. My mom was a career woman, worked as long as she could, and she thought women's lib movement got stupid at times. I remember being a little kid and her saying some things that's just moronic, for taking it too far. Women's lib did get too stupid. It's also a joke that's taken a little bit more than out of context. Now, if we go over here to this little article by Ben Riggs, he gets down to it. Okay, so before we even get to the I'm sorry, wait, let me finish laughing. Okay. Oh God.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Get on with it!
Okay, before we even get to the actual dig, this is ripped from Greyhawk. It also gave the game new dragons, among them the King of Lawful Dragons and the Queen of Chaotic Dragons. The male dragon is good, the female dragon is evil. See Appendix 1 for more. This is about chaos and evil. They're not the same thing, etc. It is a reputation of the old trope that male power is inherently good and female power is inherently evil.
What?
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 What were you thinking? What were you thinking?
Consider a connotation of the words witch and wizard. What about warlock?
I am the one, the way your son don't get.
With witches being evil by definition, for another example. So as you can see, preconceived notion, just because they made the bad dragon, a female. There you go.
Well, that's all right then.
Keeps going. Except when we return to the Greyhawk text, we see that actually Gygax and Kurtz who put politics into D&D. The text itself comments on the fact that the lawful dragon is male and the chaotic one is female. Gygax and Kurtz wrote, "Women's lib may make whatever they wish from the foregoing." The irony of this is, in 1974, they were trolling the guy who wrote this before he wrote it 50 years later. That's amazing. Gary Gygax trolled a guy for coming to this conclusion 50 years before he came to that conclusion. That's brilliance.
Oh my God! Wow!
Dragons, these additional varieties of dragons conform to the typical characteristics of their species except where noted. There is only one king of lawful dragons. There is only one queen of chaotic dragons. Women lib may make whatever they wish from the foregoing. Draw your own fucking conclusion. You're gonna draw it anyway.
Jump to conclusions, Matt.
Dude. You gotta applaud that guy for trolling the guy before he made the conclusion. And then when he fucking puts it in there, see, he was making a jab. He's misogynist. Oh, you gotta love that. You gotta love it. That's something. He knew what you were gonna say, and he took a jab at you, and you still look like you got egg on your face. Dumb. All right. It is an unfortunate fact that women seldom appear in the original D&D, and when they do, they're usually portrayed disrespectful. How? Now, I can bend that women were probably not in D&D as much in the beginning because it was thought of as a boys' thing. That's pretty natural to do in that time frame. Keep in mind, all the stores had a pink aisle and a blue aisle. Now, today we say, oh, that's so wrong. But in those days, that was the norm.
Well, that's what we do.
That is a product of its time. And D&D, by its nature, dragons, monsters, war, was thought to be a boy thing. I think it's funny, too, how that changed very quickly when they realized, hey, girls like this. But they don't say where they're portrayed disrespectfully. I'll get to that in a minute, because there's some funny ones about that. Slavery appears in original D&D not as a human tragedy that devastated generations over centuries, but as a simple commercial transaction. Okay, well, it was to the bad guys. Oh, wait. Are you trying to say the game promoted slavery? Because I know what this relates to. This relates to slave pits of the Undercity. And in the description, it even says that good people have been taken by the slavers and disappeared. The slavers were the bad guys. They're the ones that were wrong. Yeah, they did treat it like it was a transaction because they were evil. And the thing is, I know this because I remember it from the Satanic Panic. Was that, oh yeah, it promotes slavery, and this is how, and this was what the example was. And Jesus Christ, Wizards of the Coast have allowed themselves to become the Satanic Panic. I remember it vividly through the 80s, 90s, and a little bit into the 2000s. It finally died down. But Lord have mercy, to use the same tactics as those assholes, and you work for them. Holy shit.
You are made of stupid.
The cultural appropriation of original D&D ranges from bewildering, like naming every 6th level cleric Lama. I'm supposing they're thinking that is a dig on the Dalai Lama. I don't think it's a dig. I think it was just trying to assign, and pretty soon it became very apparent, okay, we got so many pantheons, we can't do that, name each level, but, to the staggering gods, demigods, and heroes not reprinted in this book. Includes the game statistics for sacred figures revered by more than 1 billion people around the world. There were aspects of the Indian D. It wasn't really talked about because, again, D&D was not a worldwide thing back then. And honestly, yeah, in a minute they're going to mention Vishnu, and I got to say one thing. I've known some people who are practicing Hinduism. They've never said a word about that. Never. And stumped as to why they would make it an issue here. Because I've never heard anyone in the Hindu community ever say a word. I'm not saying they never did, but, I've played D&D with people who practice Hinduism. That's what I'm trying to say. But I don't think it was cultural appropriation in as much as it was just, let's put gods and stuff. The Greek gods are in there. The Roman gods are in there. There are gods, the Norse gods are in there. It's like, and were players expected to fight Vishnu, one of the principal deities of Hinduism, kill him, and loot his +3/4 sword of demon slaying? Back up. You can't kill a god. This is what kills me, is like, these guys don't understand the game. You can defeat the avatar of a god, the avatar goes away, the god, in some cases, the god can't come back to the quote prime material plane for another year. Yeah, yeah. And his +3 sword of demon slaying. Yeah, I would definitely steal that. That's for sure. I mean, that's a damn good item. In another section, we have note that the rules for fantastic medieval war games campaigns. Let me read that again. The rules for fantastic medieval war games campaigns that make up the original D&D were created and sold to a wargaming community as almost exclusively white middle-class men. Okay. And the rules compiled here offer little by way of roles for other players, nor indeed anyone that wouldn't easily identify with the pulp sword and sorcery hero, especially before 1974. The rules made light of slavery. No, it did not. In addition to including other harmful content. Harmful. Keeping in mind, now, first off, mentioning slavery, which was a real thing and was in the game, but, I mean, it's called a game. One thing I do remember in Dark Sun, slavery was a big deal in Dark Sun. But this also kind of doesn't relate, because by the time Dark Sun came around, Gygax was no longer a part of the company. So, but I'll talk about it anyway. And you could play a slaver, but everybody hated them. Everybody hated the slavers. And the other big thing about slavers was, in order to play one, you had to play an evil alignment, similar to the way they did the filers, which were guys that could basically use life force power spells. Gygax always discouraged playing evil. He didn't say you couldn't. He just recommended that you don't. And I kind of see his argument. And yeah, you can play that, but nobody gonna like you. Your other players aren't gonna like you. And, never mind the fact that all these rules were put in after Gygax was gone from the company, so he didn't have anything to do with it. Still, I mention it just because it's one of the few instances where slavery was playable, as weird as that was. So, Wizards of the Coast includes Legacy D&D contents. These depictions were wrong back then and are wrong today. The content presented as it was originally created, because to do otherwise would be the same thing as claiming the prejudices never existed. That's that bullshit.
Bullshit!
These are a couple of the things that they really trashed Gygax on. And, the article goes further with it. It's stupid. It really is. It's obvious that they're trying to trash these people for making a game. I mean, that's the other thing. It's a game. It's not like it's real life.
Only use that in the movies.
Oh shit, honey, what do you think this is, real life?
Can you tell the difference? Heidi Gygax Garland, the daughter of Gary Gygax, said, regarding the post by Ben Riggs, D&D co-creator Gary Gygax was sexist. In my opinion, seems to be taken out of context and pieced together. I could not verify the sources, although I truly believe they are incomplete and or incorrect. I think Frank Menster states his insights on this eloquently, and from my perspective, I do not believe my father was racist nor misogynistic. Was he sexist? I like this. He was born in 1938 to a father born in the 1880s and a mother born in 1906. He was raised in a traditional Anglo-Saxon Protestant family with traditional biblical family values, where the male was the head of the household. In my adult opinion, yes, this is sexist and doesn't hold up to our more enlightened standards today. Yet, he was a loving father and husband who valued his children and his wife. All three of his daughters played D&D with him at some point, but I happen to be the only one who still plays. In short, he wasn't perfect, but he was far from the negative accusations that are resurfacing, and I'm extremely proud and as a strong, independent woman to have E. Gary Gygax as my father and my family legacy.
Greetings! It's a pleasure to meet you.
And I just really, really wanted to get to that because that's his daughter who, from all intents and purposes, seems like a wonderful person. The other side on this, there are not people jumping up in the normal, for lack of a better term, excuse me, this is borderline political, cancel culture that we have. If you noticed, when something gets thrown out like this, somebody stands up and says, yeah, I had a bad vibe off of him in an elevator, or yeah, I thought that was weird joke he made that day, or something off-putting that you knew. I mean, it's little things, but it adds up. I don't want to name any examples because some of them are disgusting, but you get what I'm saying, and if you think about it, you know what I'm talking about. That's not happening here, and that is a very big thing to point out. Now, she says there was quotes taken out of context. There is a big quote in here that came from Europa. As soon as you start reading this, you realize what it is. But let's go through it. I've been accused of being a nasty old sexist male chauvinist pig. For the wording in D&D isn't what it should be. There should be more emphasis on the female role, more non-gendered names, and so forth. I thought perhaps these folks were right and considered adding women into the raping and pillaging section. Maybe in the Whores and Tavern Wenches chapter. A special magical part dealing with the hags and crones. And thought perhaps of adding an appendix on medieval harems and slave girls and going Viking. Damn right I am sexist. It doesn't matter to me if a woman gets paid as much as men, get jobs traditionally male, and shower men's locker rooms. They can jolly well stay away from wargaming and droves for all I care. I've seen many good war games and gamers spoiled thanks to the fairer sex. I'll detail that if anyone wishes. This is clearly a joke. Okay, so there actually is a Whores and Wenches generator, but it was put in as a joke. Okay, so the big thing missing from this quote is what we like to call context. I mean, I like some context, right? So this was actually a response to something that was in issue, and the fanzine is numbered funny. This is 6 through 8 issues, and the one that this came from Europa, the fanzine, that came from 10 to 11. And what would often happen is people would respond to the articles in the previous one. But for some reason, it took a while for these comments to come through. Jack Green was doing an article on elitism, and he had a female friend, and he wanted her input. Now, this part I'll keep up here. It's all about men being territorial, and you see it in biology and all that shit. It kind of loses the point, and actually she even acknowledges it loses the point. But I'll get to where the point is, because at this point, I can almost hear Jack reminding me that this was supposed to be a statement on wargaming. So perhaps I better make my point. Finally, after 2 paragraphs. After living with an avid wargamer for over a year, I've come to the realization that wargaming is a form of sublimation for the animal kingdom's territorial imperative, and not a pleasant one at that. It is not to his credit that a man chooses to kill for sport, even if the bodies are only cardboard game pieces. Keep in mind, back then they used cardboard. We graduated up to metal and then plastic. So insert material there. Wargaming is not, like chess, a game of pure strategy. Remember, wargamers, you're not using strategy. Keep that in mind as we go forward. All the wargamers I have met, and I know several, all male, needless to say, have had a strong element of the homicidal maniac in their nature. A lust for violence, on the game board at least, seems to be a prerequisite for being a wargamer. She just called all wargamers homicidal maniacs. So far, I have tried to be theoretical and objective, but I'm curious to know if there are other women who have shared my feelings of nausea and disgust when my lover has been involved in a war game in the next room, and I've heard him pounding the table yelling, "Blood must flow." He is, at that moment, separated from me by a gulf that I don't even want to bridge. It's no wonder that few women are wargamers. I think that tendency to lose touch with one's humanity is a trait generally shared by far more men than women, with wargaming as a prime example. I don't know about you, but I feel rather insulted.
Yo, she-bitch. Let's go.
And this was in direct response to this. I'm just saying, let's think about the context here. That's pretty insulting to people who love wargaming. We're violent, lack control, homicidal maniacs. I mean, wow. I think Gygax was a little reserved in his response after reading that. By the way, it did take me forever to find this, and I didn't understand what was going on in the fanzine because it was kind of not obvious. Eventually I figured out what it was doing, but oh my god! And then I finally found this, and I was like, holy shit! Yeah, I can understand where that quote comes from now. Oh boy, doesn't context make a real difference in how you view a quote. I mean, the quote itself wasn't that bad. It seemed like a joke. But now you know why.
You're despicable.
So, putting a nice little bow on this part of this video, Jason Dundro, who assisted writing the foreword, was asked point blank if they foresaw any blowback from the comments. Jason replied, "I think this is a funny screenshot because Aaron David Lewis, his name is hidden out of his question, but then he's tagged in the comment. Whatever. Early in the book's development, the marketing team asked me, I want you to underline marketing team. What sort of critique should we expect to prepare for? I and the editors agreed that the problem was going to be from the progressives and people from the underrepresented groups who justly took offense to the language in the original D&D. I didn't write the preface until late and wrote it to address the concerns. It never occurred to me I'd rouse the ire of the grognards. Yeah, okay. It's obvious now that I look back on it, but I just don't take those critiques seriously even now. I consider those people not worth listening to. So I didn't anticipate their outrage. Here's the thing, you should expect outrage when it's not true. This really ties into what's going on, because there's a lot of this shit lately. Luke, Indiana. Let's face it, we're being given these Mary Sue characters who don't have any conflict to overcome, who don't have any problems. They can do everything just perfectly, and it's not a big deal. And people complain about it, and then it's like, oh, you're sexist. No. Look at the history of media. There's dozens of women heroes, protagonists, whatever fucking word you want to use, that are loved by fans. It has nothing to do with sexism. I can sit here and name them all day. What has happened is the marketing teams have sold this idea. This idea that all this stuff that we're seeing going on now, and remember my disclaimer, I said I got to skirt some politics here, because there is some politics in this. But also keep in mind, my degree has a strong emphasis on marketing. We're going to get a whole shift of media, commercials, shows, everything, that we're looking more into the politics of it than the actual product. And this is what we've been getting. But they sold them this idea. And the golden rule in marketing is, if you have a political opinion, you keep it to yourself. Unless it's something very, very important. It is so rare that a business takes a political stance that it's mind-boggling that they are now. It truly is. It's mind-boggling. Because the longest time the marketing rule was, don't get political, don't get political, don't get political. You automatically will alienate at least 1/2 to 40%. 40 to 50% of the audience will be isolated when you get political. And now politics is piling up in everything. And then the response is political. And back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I told you I'm apolitical. I don't like politics. No matter what animal you got at the table, it's going to shit in your food. Because that's what they do. But again, when companies were not overly political, I'll say it that way, they had better business. And now that they've decided to go into the politics because the marketing team said that was the right thing to do, because people are identifying with this, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, this is what we get. The marketing team asked me what sort of critiques we should expect and prepare for. No, the marketing team told you what critiques you should prepare for. And they were fucking wrong. Was Gary Gygax misogynist? Possibly. Does the evidence presented show that he was misogynist? No. And there is nothing at all gained by the accusation. All Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro have done is alienate a significant chunk of the fan base. But with their track record, that's pretty normal. The thing that you should have done was not get political, publish the damn book, maybe make a statement that it was written in 1974. That might have helped. And leave it at that. And then people wouldn't be accusing you of trashing a guy that made some of the best fucking gaming ever. If you've ever played a game that has hit points, most of that came out of Gary Gygax. And it's a damn shame we're at the point we got to tear down history for a marketing ploy. Shit.